Hello everybody, my name is Cameron Earl, and today I am here with another video, and that is going to be, it's going to be a Disney Villainous difficulty ranking. I've been wanting to do another difficulty ranking for a while, admittedly. It's just, haven't gotten around to it. Started a job at Wendy's, so I've just been doing that stuff. First job, getting into the swing of things there. But yeah, so Disney Villainous, even Star Wars Villainous, and definitely Marvel Villainous are not the most balanced games when it comes to board game balance. It's not an incredibly balanced game when it comes to one-on-one. Now, when it comes to 4 to 6 player games, it's pretty balanced, actually. But when it's just one-on-one, the game is not incredibly balanced. So I wanted to just go over, tell you what I think is probably the easiest characters to win with. Now, I did do this on a ranking engine online. If you literally type ranking engine in the search bar, it'll show up, and it has you do a bunch of 50-50 choices after you put your items in, which my items were the names of the villains, and it would have you pick 50-50, and that's how I ended up ranking these. So, getting to the easiest, or the least difficult of our villains, to probably no one's surprise, it's actually a 3-way tie, in my opinion. I did have a hard time picking between these 3, but I think I did end up making a final choice. And I think, honestly, the easiest to win with is, to no one's surprise, Dr. Facilier. I mean, honestly, he's been the easiest to win with for a long time. The only thing about Dr. Facilier is that when he wins, it's actually on your opponent's shoulders if you're playing as Dr. Facilier, because your opponent picks the 3 cards out of the fortune deck. And a lot of the time, Dr. Facilier has a few ways to get cards out of his fortune pile so it doesn't get too big, because you don't want his fortune pile to get, huge. Because the more cards in the fortune pile, the less likely it is for you to randomly pull Royal New Orleans. Now, obviously, there are the mass spirits and whatnot, but at the same time, he only really needs 3 cards to win. And if you manage to get the cane out, you can put the cane to the Voodoo Emporium. You can use the cane to use a second play card action on your turn while you're at the Voodoo Emporium, and you can play the Talisman, and the cards will tell in the same turn, and basically win there. I think probably his most dangerous fate card is it's either Almost There or Big Daddy LaBeouf. Big Daddy LaBeouf can put Royal New Orleans back on the top of the fate deck, and that could honestly really hurt more than you think it would when you're playing Dr. Facilier. But otherwise, yeah, he's just a walk in the park to win with. I have warmed up to the character. I am starting to play him a lot more than I used to. And I'm starting to like playing as this character more. Definitely not my favorite, but he is pretty fun. Up next here, I have Ratigan, the Greatest Criminal Mind. Now, Ratigan has 2 goals, but he only needs to complete 1 to win. And his second one is actually a lot easier than his first goal. Because obviously, as Ratigan, you need to get the Robot Queen to the palace. Now, this could be... he's inconsistent. He's fairly inconsistent. You have no clue where the Robot Queen could be. You can use items to your advantage, like Fidget's List and definitely Gears and Tools. You should always play Gears and Tools when you're playing Ratigan. But at the same time, he's also inconsistent. One card you always want to save is the Airship, because the Airship can get the Robot Queen to the palace almost as soon as you play her. But at the same time, these items can be discarded if they're at locations with heroes because of sabotage, and a lot of the time that is not what you want. Ratigan is the only character who can play nothing but items and win, which I think is really cool. But if you get rid of the Robot Queen, then his goal turns to defeating Basil, and defeating Basil is stupidly easy for Ratigan, because at that point in the game, you should probably already have the Bell out Felicia in your hand, just waiting in case the Robot Queen is at the palace and ready to be discarded at your dismay. Probably Ratigan's worst card is against him is actually the Mouse Queen, who, when you play the Mouse Queen, Ratigan can no longer win at Buckingham Palace. So I think that is Ratigan's worst fate card. Other fate cards can hurt him especially with the Basil goal, and that is Toby and Makeshift Balloon and Call for Help, because that moves heroes. But yeah, I think Ratigan's really fun to play, and I think he's also a fairly easy one to win with. I wouldn't play him if you're a beginner. I feel like he's one of the more or less friendly beginner characters, but so is Dr. Facilier. Another character who may or may not be beginner friendly, who's next on this list, is someone who I'm not personally a big fan of playing, and that is Madame Mim from The Sword and the Stone. Obviously, she has a very TCG, like Magic the Gathering, like play style, in my opinion. Obviously, she has to play down transformations. Only certain transformations can defeat certain transformations, and that's that. My problem with Madame Mim is the fact that you have to draw the right stuff at the right time, but when it comes to difficulty, she is still mind-bogglingly powerful against most of these characters, because, especially with I'll Make the Rules, you have so many cards called I'll Make the Rules, which just get rid of a transformation without you needing to have to play any of your own transformations to defeat that Merlin transformation, and you have like 4 of those in your deck, and they're 4 power, and, I mean, she can't conserve power the easiest, but with your conditions, you can. Now, there's also the problem with her Fate deck, with the fact that her Fate deck is only 8 cards, but 4 of those are the same cards, and that card does basically nothing. Knowledge and Wisdom, which just moves the Merlin transformation. But even so, unless she has her transformation out on the board, it's pretty much pointless of wherever you're going to place that Merlin transformation with Knowledge and Wisdom. Another card is Bird Arthur. That could help or hurt Madame Mim, but you'll never know. Obviously, her detrimental cards are Germ Merlin and Merlin, because not only can Germ Merlin get rid of transformations, but Merlin puts one of his transformations back, but of course that also at the same time doesn't hurt Madame Mim that much. I just think she's mind-bogglingly easy. She would be higher on the difficulty scale if she played like I originally thought how she played, which is whenever she has 0 transformations on her board. Hang on. I got something caught in my throat for a second. Ow. That was weird. What was I saying? Can't think of it. Oh, yeah. She would be higher on the difficulty scale if she played like I thought she played, and that's when there's 0 transformations on her board. Then she draws one. But no, I later found out that it was after she defeats a transformation, she brings another one out. So you can have so many transformations on your board at once, and if you just play all your transformations, if you have enough power to do so, you can just take them out. Multiple transformations on the same turn. And she only has 7. Now, that may seem like a lot, but trust me, she's powerful. Next character I have here is Queen of Hearts. A lot of the base set characters are going to be pretty low on the difficulty scale, but I think Queen of Hearts, let's say this, I don't know if I forgot to say this or not, but I'm ranking these on a 1v1 perspective and not like a 4-player, 3-player, 6-player, 5-player game. I'm ranking these on a 1v1, and Queen of Hearts is pretty powerful, honestly. She can get those card guards out, and she can just activate them in a snap. I can't snap my fingers. Yeah, I can't snap my fingers. She can just activate them like that. And with cards like the King, she's not going to be spending much power. She doesn't spend much power regardless. Her only problem is the fact that she'll need more than 4 for the most part, I think, to win with Take a Shot, because she'll need as much strength in those wickets as she can get to win the game. She also has the only non-evil goal on this list, which she just wants to play croquet. But honestly, she is still pretty easy to win with when you consider all things. The stopwatch as well can help her gain massive money to help her throw out the card guards more than she already usually does, which is pretty fast. Cards that can hurt her, a combination of Alice and Mome Wraiths. That's pretty much her worst thing. There's also the Dodo Bird, which he's not terrible to deal with, but he can slow her down a bit, probably, most of the time. But next character we got here is one that I didn't expect to actually be this low on this list, and that is Maleficent, probably the most boring character to play when it comes to Disney Villainous. Maleficent doesn't have that much going on. For how famous Maleficent actually is, what does she really do in the movie except whine and moan and just be the mother of all Karens? Especially with her lack of screen time. She did get her own movie, but that was turning her into the good guy, not the villain. So she just has to place curses everywhere, and with cards like Vanish and especially the Staff and especially the Raven, if you get the Raven out, that's when Maleficent becomes fun, is with the Raven. If you have the Raven out, I do so many combos with Maleficent, it's so fun, but then it's over so fast because of how fast Maleficent can win. Now, the thing that puts her above these 4 is her Fate deck. She has one of the most brutal Fate decks, I feel, of any character in Disney Villainous. But they do counteract how fast she can win, but at the same time, she still has the ability to win. Cards like Merryweather can hurt. Now, Merryweather, to a lot of people's eyes, especially if you're new to the game, her worst Fate card can seem like Merryweather, because she doesn't allow you to play a curse to her location. It would be true, but there's actually a card that I think is worse, and that is King Stefan. Because King Stefan is a 4-strength hero, which means he can get rid of Forest of Thorns, and he can also move Maleficent to any location when he is played, which, if she moves to a location with green fire, then green fire is discarded. All of her curses have their own little ways that they can be discarded, but Maleficent still pulls out a lot of wins. Now, concluding the bottom 6 here out of our 21 is Prince John. Now, in a 4-player game, he'd probably be way at the bottom, but in a 1-on-1, he's pretty easy, all things considered. He just has to gain 20 power. Actually, the Fading Prince John is actually a good way to make him win. Because a lot of the time, Prince John does need heroes to collect money. Now, of course, it's counteracted by heroes Robin Hood and King Richard. But also, Prince John's allies are pretty strong. Now, obviously, that's power that you don't want to spend. But if you do defeat that hero, you could probably gain a lot of power back, especially with your warrants. And, greed is a condition you're always going to want to keep. But if your opponent knows about that, it might not be best to keep it, because they might just keep themselves from gaining 6 power. Like my buddy who I play with does that crap. When I'm playing Prince John, we'll keep the 6. We'll keep under 6 power. I play with him online. He's great. But honestly, Prince John in a 1v1 Not the easiest character, but he's still very easy to win with. Now, my next character here, I actually expected this character to be a little bit lower, but I understand their placement here, and that is the Evil Queen, the OG herself. Actually, there's a different there's the OOG here. But Evil Queen was the first villain of the first ever Disney feature-length film, Snow White, coming close to his 100th anniversary in 2037. The movie will be 100 years old. But yeah, Evil Queen. You know, if you start with the right hand, you get those ingredients out immediately. Unlock the Dwarf's Cottage. I've warmed up to the Evil Queen. I used to not like playing her in the early days of when I had this channel. I used to not like playing the Evil Queen. Thought she was confusing. I thought her goal was dumb. I thought she was difficult to win with. No, actually, she's in my top 10 favorites to play when it comes to ranking all 38. Is there 38 villains? Let's see, there's 21 Marvel, or not 21 Marvel, there's 21 Disney. There's 12 Marvel, so 12 plus 21 is 33. And then there's so there's 38. There's 38 villains in all, soon to be 42, with Scum and Villainy and Filled with Fright. And if you want to count that stupid freaking 100th anniversary introduction to evil set they're coming out with, I guess 46. It's just, I don't even think that's such a good idea. But we'll see. I can't judge it before it comes out. Whenever it comes out, I don't even know when it comes out. It comes out for Disney's 100th year anniversary. Anyway, yeah. And of course, you know, your opponents, if they fate you and they get two heroes, one of them being Snow White, they don't have to play them, so you're definitely going to want to play the mirror. And even after you use the mirror to activate Snow and find Snow White, the mirror still has its uses. Every time you're fated and the magic mirror is on your board, you draw a card. But at the same time, if Snow White has like 2 pickaxes and the wishing well on her, any of those items, you can reactivate the magic mirror if it's still on your board, because it can be gotten rid of with Sneezy, and just get rid of all of those. And it's awesome to just get rid of all that extra bulk on her. But at the same time, the reason the Evil Queen is up here is because if you fade her constantly, she will have a tough time winning with Snow White. A lot of people think that Doc is her worst hero, but he is a close second to someone else I think is an even worse hero, and that is Happy. Happy is terrifyingly good against the Evil Queen, because whenever he's played, Evil Queen loses poison equal to the number of heroes on her board. Now, if you're playing against someone who knows how to properly screw over the Evil Queen, she's going to have a lot of heroes on her board, for sure. So, yeah, Evil Queen's up here above these guys, but she's still admittedly pretty easy because of how fast she can get out those ingredients. And especially Black of Night, you can just gain all that money, brew all that in the poison, and you're pretty much set until Happy's Happy Chappy Arse comes out and then ruins you. And Doc. Doc is bad too. Another hero that's pretty hurtful is Sleepy and Dopey. Bashful and Grumpy are pretty meh. Sneezy is very situational. Coming up next on the list, I didn't expect this character to be this low, but that is Lady Tremaine. And the reason why I didn't expect Lady Tremaine to be this low, even though she is because I've only seen someone come back from the Fairy Godmother fate once with Lady Tremaine, and that was when Fairy Godmother got put on our board very early, because the problem with Lady Tremaine is that Fairy Godmother sucks. Putting Ball Gown Cinderella and then needing to get rid of the glass slippers, it's just, you know. Hang on, I gotta interrupt the video. Gotta interrupt the video for this. at that little guy. Oh, you're so cute. Kitty. Nah, he doesn't want no attention. Okay, let's set this back. Okay, let's go. But yeah, Lady Tremaine, she's pretty difficult, and she doesn't have the best ways to get through her deck, but her condition and one more thing can help with that tremendously. The Invitation is something that I wish I would activate more, but the Invitation's ability, aside from just unlocking the palace, I don't really remember it that often. I don't think a lot of people remember it that well until they actually read the card. The Cane is really good. The Key is meh. Once again, a character who relies very heavily on items, but she can also rely very heavily on conditions, and her best condition is, and one more thing in my opinion, but her other condition, Vicious Practical Jokes, is really good. Locked Up, that condition just sucks. Very conditional. But let's get on to the next character here, and that is Captain Hook. A Pirate's Life for me. A Pirate's Life for Shmee. Okay, so Captain Hook, I have a special connection to. Because Captain Hook is not only really fun, but he was the first Villainous character I ever played, and I had a blast. Even though I lost that game to my dad, he still doesn't understand how to play Villainous. I basically won the game for him. He was playing Maleficent. He was playing Maleficent specifically because her piece looked really cool. But Captain Hook, he's just so fun. And he's not that difficult to win with compared to the difficulty ranking I have here. So he just has to find Peter Pan and the Neverland map. Now, finding Neverland map can be difficult if it's at the bottom of your deck, but even more difficult is finding Peter Pan. But at the same time, finding Peter Pan, it can also help you not finding Peter Pan. Because if Peter Pan's still in your Fate deck, Peter Pan has to be played immediately if he's revealed during a Fate action to the Hangman's Tree, whether it is locked or not. Sorry, I had a brain fart there. So that would keep your opponents from fading you when they figure out about that, because they don't want to accidentally pull Peter Pan. But when you find Peter Pan, then it's fading time, probably. Captain Hook, because by the time you find Peter Pan, you'll probably have the Neverland map out, or at least in your hand, because you'll probably be towards the bottom of your deck. But of course, you only have so many cards that can help you find heroes. That can make it difficult. Especially Captain Hook's condition to help find heroes. It's good when you use it, but it's not something I never hold on to. But yeah, so fun, especially with Captain Hook's items, the cannon, and the ingenious device. Even with Hook's case, he can gain so much power. His items are just great, and being able to remove the Neverland map after you don't need it no more is just a great way to get those items you don't want to pay for on your board. Okay, let's get on to our next character, and that is Syndrome. I say, he's just really easy to win with when it comes to a lot of these villains. Even though if you just fate him horrendously and get heroes on his board, it's really difficult for him to win, honestly. But that's what the On the Droid 10 is for. But at the same time, early in the game, putting heroes on Syndrome's board can also be good for him, because he does need to destroy those on the droids. But when it comes to time comes to have the remote out, then that's when you should start fading Syndrome, and it can be admittedly really hard for him to win there if you pull the right fate cards, which is the right fate cards are pretty much any hero, because he cannot win if heroes are on his board. Once again, this is one-on-one, and if it's one-on-one, sometimes your opponent will not be able to fate Syndrome as much, so Syndrome can definitely he can sneak up, for sure. He can sneak up on the wins. Now, his remote does have to be out at least a turn after finding the On the Droid, I think. Uh, I think so, yeah. But next, let's get to our next character, and that is Ursula. Yeah, I did not expect her to be this low on the list either. The biggest drawback for Ursula, I've warmed up to this character, but I still hate playing her, pretty much. She's not my least favorite to play no more, though. I don't even think she's bottom 5, actually, out of the Disney characters. But the biggest drawback for Ursula is that she needs to get through her deck, but she doesn't have a very good way to. Obviously, there's opportunity, or what is it? Divination. It's divination that can help you find binding contract. Now that, if over a fifth of your deck wasn't taken up by binding contracts, or if a fifth of your deck wasn't taken up by binding contracts, then divination would probably take you all the way through your deck, almost, maybe, depending. But then you might discard your items, and what if you already discarded Opportunist before that? Ursula has a lot of cards that could be useful, but there's too many cards that could be really useful, but the problem with that is that her cards are very situational when they are good a lot of the time, and sometimes you'll have to discard them, and then you can't find them again, and then you actually discard the cards you need. But the biggest thing for Ursula here is the fact that she can literally she's the only character who can fully guarantee her win by locking the lair when it has the trident and the crown added, which means that you literally can't do a thing to her in a one-on-one. And another thing that goes for her when it comes to being this low on the difficulty spectrum is the fact that she can fate like hell. She has Grow Giant, which makes her be able to use a action at an adjacent location, even if it is locked, and it has no restrictions that say you cannot use it to perform fate actions. So she can use Grow Giant to perform fate actions, and there are ways. There's like 3 of them, and there's also ways to get them back. So don't play a character who will get hurt if you fate them a lot against Ursula, because she will fate you a lot. Now let's get to our next character. Did we finish any of the sets yet? Like, are all the sets on here? No, I don't think so. No. But we are actually finishing a set here with boom, Jafar. He's our man. If he can't do it, great. Jafar, I used to hate playing Jafar because honestly, I thought he was the most difficult person in the world. Because the thing with Jafar is the fact that I thought, with my tiny little pea brain that I used to have, that you had to get enough allies to defeat the genie before and play Hypnotize as you're killing them. That wasn't the case. Hypnotize just flat out defeated it. So that made Jafar a lot easier. Because if I didn't know that now, he would probably still be way at the top of my list. But Jafar, he's so freaking fun to play. I love playing Jafar. He's so great. He has amazing ways to get through his deck to find out what he wants via scrying. And if Abu or Aladdin do happen to take the lamp, you can always hold on to Sorcerer's Power, which is you can move an ally to any location and a hero to any location. So you can just move the hero with Aladdin or Abu with the attached magic lamp all the way to the palace, hypnotize them, and la-di-da. Because there's no card that says you can unhypnotize. I'd say probably the worst card aside from Aladdin and Abu would probably... I'd say it would probably be the card because you play the card before the genie. It's just a minor nuisance. But if whoever is playing Jafar has to instead vanquish Abu or Aladdin, then what is that? I can't even think of that card. Narrow Escape. If you play Narrow Escape, then that could hurt Jafar because you can obviously just bring them back. But Jafar has great ways to get through his deck, and he has amazing ways to gain lots of power via Necessary Sacrifice. I love playing that card. I love having just a stack of power this high off the board with Jafar. But now we're going to get to a character I'm sure a lot expected to be actually lower on the list, but I think that they actually deserve to be higher here, and that is Gaston. No one sucks like Gaston. Yeah, he sucks. I hate playing Gaston. Specifically since he is so unthematic. He just needs to remove obstacles, but his whole point in the movie is that he wants to kiss the girl. But he can't. Because Belle, he can't win if Belle is on his board, even though he's trying to get Belle. That's the point of the movie. But they decided to just have him remove obstacles and have his goal not include Belle whatsoever. It's so bad, and his whole fate deck just basically resets him. His whole fate deck, it's nothing but obstacle replacement. However, Gaston, if he does manage to gain enough power with like Spoon, not Spoon, if he manages to gain a lot of power with Swoon, of course, there's obviously defeating the Beast and Maurice to get power, but defeating Maurice and the Beast both are like nearly impossible when it comes to playing Gaston, so you might as well not. But Gaston can be pretty sneaky with some of his obstacle removing cards, especially Get Out is definitely a big punch in the gut if Gaston surprise plays it on you. Whoever's playing Gaston is a big punch in the gut to your opponent. But Gaston's whole deck just resets him. And the fact that Bella's so weak, you can get rid of her easily, but she could just come back. He's so difficult to win with. But I think that these, according to me, according to that ranking engine that I did, these characters, these 8 characters above Gaston are a little bit more difficult than him. These next 3, Gaston and these next 3, I think are actually pretty much tied. But we're going to get on to our next character, which is Yzma, a character who I found so much hate for when it comes to playing this game. Even though she's great in Emperor's New Groove, she is horrid to play. Yzma has the 4 fate decks, one above every location. But the problem with Yzma is the fact that she has 2 heroes that you have to defeat before other heroes, Tipo and Chaka. And when you have Kuzco out, not only do you have to, burden yourself with having to get rid of those kids, but there's 5 cards that can bring them back and 1 that can bring Kuzco back. Oh, wait. Yeah, and then there's also ways to shuffle the fate deck. It's just that it's so hard to keep consistent with your goal when every fate card played will probably bring back something that will stop you from winning. Yzma's just not very fun to me, and the way they did her is thematic, yes, but I don't think it works very well in this game, and that's why she's this high on the list, because she's also admittedly very slow if she doesn't get the right one, because she's probably one of the most luck-based characters out of the whole Disney Villainous roster. But the next character here I have is the Horned King, and the Horned King's mostly just here because he's slow. He's very slow to win with. Now, the problem with the King is... I'm having an OCD moment. So the problem with the Horned King is that he is very slow to win with. If you don't get the right cards at the right time, you're going to have a very tough time. Because if you draw all your Cauldron before the Ancient Soldiers, then that sucks, because then you'll have to discard all of them. And obviously we have made a bargain, the card, but sometimes it doesn't always work in your favor. There's also, his fate deck is not that brutal against him at the same time. Horned King is just really slow to win with, and I think that's what puts him all the way down here, especially if his fate cards work, they work good. Especially Gurgi's Sacrifice and Gurgi's Happy Day. Because just discarding 1 Cauldron, that can really hurt the Horned King. Okay, next here on this list I have Pete. Pete is going to join Horned King over here. And Pete, these four right here, I think they're all on, I think they're all on the same difficulty level. Pete has 4 randomly chosen goals that he has to complete to win. Now, he knows them from the start of the game, whoever is playing Pete, but his opponents don't. And his opponent can reveal them, but if you play Villainous a lot like I do, and especially my friend that I play with, he and me and pretty much everybody who plays Villainous will eventually know what Pete's trying to do without even needing to reveal the goals, because Pete only has 5 goals and he completes 4 of them per game if he wins. Now, obviously, a lot of his goals can be difficult, like rule the realm, which he has to have more allies and heroes at every location. But if you just keep playing heroes, then there's to have 10 or more strength and allies at this location and have 3 items at this location. Those 2 goals, Strike It Rich and Roundup, and those can be thwarted by a whole bunch of his fake cards that move allies and items, or even Minnie Mouse, who discards them, or Pluto, who just strictly moves items, or even Goofy, who can move gold tokens. Of course, there's also Mickey Mouse, and Mickey Mouse is just terrible. But yeah, the Rule the Realm can be really difficult to complete. Obviously, there's the easiest goal, which is Power Play, which just spends 6 power in 1 turn at that location. I love that goal though, because it's just a nice quick burn that you can. It's just a nice small flame that you can put out quickly. Now the bane of my existence is his 5th goal, and that goal is Win Big, which is gain 4 power from play a game. It breaks my heart. Every time I play it, I draw a condition! I hate the Win Big goal. And if you're not lucky, like I am, or if you're lucky, unlike me, you'll get Win Big on your first try. But if you have the same luck as I do when it comes to playing Pete, you'll play all 4 play game cards before you win that one. Especially with Sneaky Pete can be used, but at the same time, Sneaky Pete also kind of sucks to use if the goal's not a podunk landing. But getting on to the next character is Hades. I feel like a character that people need to cut a lot of slack on, because a lot of people say that Hades is one of the most difficult to win with, and obviously he is number 5 on the difficulty scale according to me. But at the same time, I feel like, now I think about it, I feel like these I feel like these 5 are all in their own little bubble of difficulty. The only problem is that Hades' Fate deck is pretty hurtful. He has 2 Go the Distance cards, which move Titans 2 spaces or move a hero. He has Hera, which traps a single Titan whenever she gets played or moved. Hercules, which doesn't allow Titans at his location to move. Zeus, which traps Titans when they move into his location. And he also has 2 Thunderbolts, which just trap all Titans at whatever location you choose. Now that is literally half of his Fate deck. That's all gone. Oh, and there's also more moving Titans. There's Pegasus. Pegasus moves Titans. So yeah, that's 5. That's half of his Fate deck that's taken up by items that move heroes. Now that's 3 medallions, which just give hero strength. That could also really hurt him. There's 2 Gospel Truths. And obviously Gospel Truth, that gets rid of an ally or item. Now that could get rid of a pretty good ally, like Pain, Panic, or Nessus. Heck, even Cerberus is an amazing ally. I love playing Cerberus. Hydra's good too, but I never put it back in my hand. And then there's obviously Meg and Phil, which those 2 characters suck. Phil's terrible. I love Danny DeVito, and I love Phil's character in the movie, but the card is so bad. Now, Megara, she can be pretty good if Hera is on the board, but most of the time she's not. So, yeah. Hades' Fate deck is just really bad against him. But getting on to another character who I think... Now we're getting on to the characters who I think the Fate deck can be pretty unfair. And the first one here is Scar. I feel like Scar has one of the most unfair fate decks, and the fact that he has 3 Hakuna Matatas. Now, to win as Scar, you have to defeat at least 4 heroes. Now, your heroes are Mufasa, Sarabi, Simba, obviously that family, Timon and Pumbaa, Zazu, and Rafiki. Oh, and there's also Nala. So yeah, those are your 8 heroes. But that leaves 3 prophecies, 3 Hakuna Matatas, and Rafiki's stick. So Rafiki's stick can keep a hero on the board for longer. If it's used on Mufasa, you might as well just give up. But the unfairest thing about Scar's Fate deck is the 3 Hakuna Matatas. Now, if there was 2, I could get past it. But at that point in the game, when you have a lot of heroes in your succession pile to win with, it's pretty unfair that you could just bring those Hakuna Matatas out and just keep taking those heroes, and there's 3 of them in total. Obviously, Scar can use the fate cards in his discard pile to his advantage with Whisper. He can even use Hakuna Matata to his advantage, because getting 3 heroes with a strength of 3 or less out of the succession pile isn't the only thing that Hakuna Matata does. It can also move heroes. So Scar can use that to his advantage to move the heroes to where he wants it to, instead of having to play Feeding Frenzy to get rid of all of his to move all of his hyenas somewhere. But I feel like if it was just 2 Hakuna Matatas, I feel like that would have been better. Okay, getting on to our next. Now, I had a really tough time thinking about these top 3, but I think the next one on the list, who I had her as my most difficult at one point, and that was Cruella de Vil. She's a slow burn. She's probably the slowest character to win with. But of course, it all comes down, a lot of the time on difficulty spectrum, it all comes down to Fate deck, because Fate decks, they can make or break the game, and I feel like Cruella has a pretty mild Fate deck. There's like, a lot of it is mild, but then there's that chunk that is just really brutal. And one I'd like to talk about is Flew the Coop. Probably my least favorite Fate card of all time my least favorite Fate card of all time is in a character we're getting to. The Fate deck of a character we're getting to. But it's Flew the Coop I hate, because that removes captured puppy tokens back to the pile. I feel like it should put the puppy tokens back to a location of the Faders choosing, instead of putting it back in the supply of puppy tokens, because that just slows Cruella down so much. And obviously there's Anita, Roger, Pongo, and Perdita, who they mess with puppy tokens. Sergeant Tibbs also really sucks. We're Labradors also really sucks. Yeah, I'm actually looking at this puzzle. I just completed this puzzle today. Obviously there's Reckless Driving that can get rid of the Roadster, and the Roadster is just so good. Cards you're definitely going to want to play are the Telephone, because there's a strategy with the Telephone where you discard an ally and then activate the Telephone to play for free from your discard pile. It's just so fun to do that. It's so great. With Jasper, you can capture 88 puppies at one point. You just have to be extraordinarily lucky and hope that your opponent doesn't know what they're doing when you're fading you. So, there are a lot of cards that you can get out that she can use to get puppy tokens, but at the same time, she only has 2 allies and those are pretty much her only ways, besides bought and paid for, to capture puppy tokens. So, very slow, especially since you're going to have to relocate those allies a lot. Okay, next on the list, I have Mother Gothel, the penultimate in difficulty. Now, I did have Mother Gothel below Cruella de Vil at one point, but me and my buddy, we have done enough matchups of Cruella de Vil and Mother Gothel for me to know that Cruella de Vil comes out on top all the time, for the most part. So I think Mother Gothel's definitely more difficult than Cruella de Vil in a one-on-one, and that's just because Cruella de Vil has a less a less brutal Fate deck than Mother Gothel. Mother Gothel has a pretty brutal Fate deck, all things considered. But obviously, if you are a literal expert at playing Mother Gothel like I am, she's still very tough to win with. I hardly win with Mother Gothel, even though I pretty much know all the combos that you can do with her, and that my other friend group on the side that I play Villainous with, especially my girlfriend, they won't let me play Mother Gothel because they know I'm great with the character. But all things considered, her Fate deck is brutal. If she's in like a 4 to 6 player game, she's pretty easy to. She'll probably sneak up on you a few times with the trust count, but in a 1-on-1, she's just not having it. But my opinion for the most difficult Villainous character of all time also happens to be my least favorite Villainous character to play, and that is Lotso. Brutally boring, brutal Fate deck. Lotso is Gaston on like 5 different drugs. Acid. Because Gaston's whole Fate deck just goes against him and resets him. Lotso's does that double time. Lotso's whole Fate deck completely resets him because Lotso needs 4 heroes with 0 strength of the Caterpillar Room to win. Not a lot of the time he can't even play the heroes. Well, if you're using Big Baby, you can't even play the heroes to the Caterpillar Room. I think. I don't know. I don't play Lotso enough to care. So, there's that. But he needs 4 heroes to win with, but he only has 4 heroes in his Fate deck because there is a lot of problems with the rights to some heroes. But I feel like if they gave him more heroes, he would be easier to win with. But when it comes to his Fate deck, once you get all 4 heroes out of there, his whole Fate deck is effects that remove strength tokens or even remove heroes. My least favorite Fate card of any Villainous character is the Claw. There's like 3 of those. And they just completely take a hero off the board. And that is such bullcrap when it comes to playing Lotso, because it can be so hard to get that hero back, especially since throughout the game you'll have to be, sacrificing your allies. Sometimes you might not always have Buzz on your side of the board, especially because you don't even necessarily need Buzz to be on your side of the board. I've literally seen my girlfriend win with Lotso without even doing a single thing with Buzz Lightyear. You don't need it. Buzz Lightyear is pretty much only used as a mechanism to win with at the very end of the game and as a mechanism to move heroes to the Caterpillar Room easier. But I don't want to stay here ranting. Lotso just sucks. He's so bad. I will never get over my disdain for this character. I don't think. He is just so unfun, so hard to win with, so difficult, and I feel like he's definitely deserving of the top spot in difficulty for when it comes to these 21 characters to play. But that being said, from easiest to hardest, in my humble opinion, is Facilier, Radigan, Madame Mim, Queen of Hearts, Maleficent, Prince John, Evil Queen. Now, I feel like this concludes the easy part, the easy villains to win with. Now we get on to our medium difficulty, which I would say is Lady Tremaine, Captain Hook, Syndrome, Ursula, and that's pretty much that. Now we're going to get on to who I think are the hard characters to win with, and that is Jafar, Gaston, Yzma, Horn King, Pete, and Hades. Then we got probably the expert characters to win with, and that is Scar, Cruella, Gothel, and Lotso. So, there's that. I hope this was helpful. I hope my opinion was helpful. Just so you know, I'm saying opinion. This is my opinion. Hopefully this is helpful. If you're just getting into the Villainous board game, then you might want to. Then this might help you find out which sets you want to get for what characters. Don't let my choices make you biased, though. Like, I basically don't like playing Lotso, Syndrome, or Madame Mim. But if you're getting into the Villainous game, maybe you will like them. If you really, really like Yzma in the movie like I do, but hate her in this game, there's that. If you want to try her, get it. If you really like Ursula as a villain, don't let me saying that I dislike playing her character keep you from trying. Yeah, every character deserves you to try them eventually. But this is just my opinion. This is just what I think of every character. And this isn't even... if we were ranking these characters would be in an entirely different place for the most part. If we were ranking these based on my personal preference to play. But this is a difficulty ranking. So maybe this will help you decide on what sets you want to get first based on difficulty. If I did have to choose a beginner set, definitely the purple box, Wicked to the Core. Comes with Facilier, Evil Queen, and Hades. Probably the least beginner friendly box is probably Perfectly Wretched, which is Pete, Krilla, and Gothel, because they used to have confusing mechanics. Also Bigger and Badder's not very beginner friendly either, which is Syndrome, Metamim, and Lotso. But yeah, thank you everybody so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.